Welcome to the next installment of my video lecture series in economics. And in this particular video lecture, we're going to take a look at some issues related to government failure, i.e. when the government steps in to institute some type of policy and causes other issues to occur in that marketplace. So we're taking a look at just some simple supply and demand curves here. We have an upward sloping supply curve, downward sloping demand curve. Where they intersect one another is the equilibrium, and in this market the equilibrium price is 1,000 and the equilibrium quantity is equal to 100. We measure consumer surplus as the area above price but below the demand curve, so this blue shaded area. Now we have producer surplus as the area below price but above the supply curve, this red area. So what we're going to take a look at is we're going to put a price control in and put a price control in below the equilibrium, and let's see what the impact is on the market. So let's say the price ceiling is going to be equal to 100. When we hit the supply curve and go straight down, that's equal to 80. And if we go from that 80 all the way up to the demand curve and across, that gives us 1,100. So these are numbers that we can use to calculate deadweight loss moving forward. So if we continue along the 900, we hit the demand curve and go straight down, and that gives us 120. So by instituting this price ceiling, we've caused a shortage. We've caused excess demand. Quantity demanded at a price of 90 is equal to 120, but landlords only going to supply 80 units. So we have a shortage of 40 units, the 120 minus the 80. So let's take a look at what the impact is on the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. Remember, under equilibrium, we originally had 100 units as the equilibrium. Now with rent control in place, landlords are only going to want to rent 80. So those units that are no longer being rented, the 20 represented here, are no longer generating consumer and producer surplus. So that would represent the deadweight loss in the marketplace. Because of these 20 units that are no longer being rented, they're no longer generating consumer and producer surplus. So this triangle on the top used to be consumer surplus. That doesn't exist anymore. The bottom triangle is producer surplus. That doesn't exist anymore. The other thing to notice is you notice that this rectangle here is blue now. It used to be red. That represents the people who were renting previously at 1,000 and are still able to rent at 900. So they're each generating $100 of consumer surplus a month because now they're only paying $900 a month for rent versus 1,000. So these individuals benefit because they get a break of $100 a month on their rent. However, the people that no longer can rent, represented by the 20 units, the 100 that used to be rented versus the 80 now, those 20 units, those people are actually made worse off. They don't have a place to live anymore. So I think this is a very useful exercise in saying, if the government wants to make rent affordable, they put rent control in. What are some of the consequences of that? We're actually going to cause a decrease in the available number of apartments in the area. Even though this will benefit the people who still can rent, it doesn't benefit the people who no longer can rent because the landlords have decided no longer to rent those apartments, and that gives us these two deadweight losses. The upper triangle, again, being from consumer surplus, and the lower part being from producer surplus. And remember, with these numbers, you can calculate what the deadweight loss is. If you wanted to find out this upper triangle, the area of a triangle is just 1/2 times the base, 1/2 base times height. Same thing for this lower triangle. You could use that formula again to calculate the deadweight loss of this lower triangle. And if we wanted to calculate how much producer surplus was converted to consumer surplus, we would just use the area of a rectangle. We would calculate the area of this rectangle here.